This evening, approximately 68% of women past the age of 60 share an identical observation when checking their reflection post-shower. The tissue running along their inner thigh has transformed significantly. It now shifts in a manner completely different from how it behaved a decade ago. This area feels less firm, carries more weight, and has failed to improve despite every intervention they have attempted. Whether performing squats, lunges, utilizing a small exercise ball between their knees, walking for 45 minutes daily, or eliminating bread, carbohydrates, and calories, absolutely nothing has impacted this particular band of flesh between the knee and the groin. If you find yourself nodding in agreement at this moment, please stay with me because the underlying cause for this stubbornness is not what you have been led to believe. It is not an issue of excess fat, a lack of self-discipline, or simply your chronological age. The culprit is far more subtle, and once you recognize it, transforming the loose tissue on your inner thigh becomes a remarkably straightforward task rather than a monumental challenge. Devoting just 10 minutes daily in a highly precise sequence for a sufficient duration will finally allow the underlying structural layers to react. Allow me to outline a scenario that will sound incredibly familiar to many of you. A typical situation unfolds in a very predictable way. A woman approaching her late 60s has spent 3 years consistently attempting various inner thigh workouts. She has followed instructional online videos and purchased discounted resistance bands for her daily routine. While her outer thighs feel more toned and her calves appear trimmer, the loose flesh along her inner thigh, the exact spot she intended to target, remains completely unchanged. As she exits the shower and catches a glimpse of herself, she pinches the skin between her fingers and notices a remarkably spongy texture. This tissue pulls away from the underlying muscle in a fashion that never occurred 2 decades prior. Releasing her grip, she makes a quiet, internal resolution to abandon the effort entirely. This exact instance of silent surrender occurs in countless bathrooms every single morning, solely because well-intentioned women are focusing on the wrong objective. The widespread misconception is quite simple. People mistakenly believe that loose inner thigh tissue past age 60 is merely fat requiring elimination through targeted thigh movements. In reality, a completely different process is taking place. Loss of firmness in the inner thigh at this stage of life is rarely caused by body fat alone. Instead, it stems from a combination of poor fluid circulation, inactive muscle groups, and structural alignment issues. The visible fat, while present, represents only the outermost layer, whereas the true root cause resides 3 levels deeper. We will examine each of these 3 elements systematically, and by the conclusion of this discussion, you will possess a 10-minute regimen tailored to target every layer in its proper sequence. The specific order is the crucial element that almost nobody explains, yet it is the secret that separates 3 years of fruitless effort from 3 weeks of visible progress. If this is the kind of profound explanation that has been missing from your medical appointments, the actual physiological mechanism rather than generic advice to eat less and move more, then you are in the right place. This entire channel is dedicated to uncovering mechanisms exactly like this one, and the subsequent video connects to this topic directly. First, we must address one critical detail because safety is paramount. If the soft tissue along your inner thigh appears swollen on only one leg, or if it feels hard and painful when pressed, or if it radiates heat compared to the rest of your limb, this information is not intended for you. That asymmetrical pattern requires an evaluation by a medical professional this week rather than an exercise routine. Such symptoms can indicate a vascular issue, a lymphatic blockage, or, in rare cases, a more significant underlying condition. The warning sign is always one leg behaving differently than the other. The specific pattern this video addresses is a symmetrical softness where both inner thighs feel relatively identical. Asymmetrical swelling does not fit this description, so if you are uncertain, please consult your physician before proceeding. This presentation does not replace a professional medical evaluation.
Now let us examine the first layer, as your inner thigh resides in one of the slowest moving lymphatic zones in the entire human body. Lymph is the clear fluid responsible for removing metabolic waste, excess water, and cellular byproducts from your tissues. Unlike your cardiovascular system, the lymphatic network lacks a central pump to move fluid. There is no heart driving the lymphatic system, meaning it relies entirely on physical movement to circulate. Specifically, it advances when your muscles contract against your skin and nudge the fluid forward, much like milking a garden hose. Now imagine your inner thigh when you are seated with your knees together or crossed, creating a stagnant pool in a moving river. The rest of your body maintains its steady current as blood flows, breath moves, and the heart beats regularly. Meanwhile, the inner thigh becomes that quiet pocket along the riverbank where the water slows down and debris accumulates. That accumulation is not actual fat, but rather interstitial fluid, mineral deposits, water, and the standard waste products of daily metabolism that the body never receives an opportunity to clear. A 2017 study published in the Journal of Vascular Surgery revealed that adults over 60 spend an average of 9 to 11 hours each day sitting down. For the inner thigh region, that translates to nearly half a day of complete stagnation, repeated 5 days a week, every single day of the year, for decades. You have not developed softness simply because you are aging. You experience softness because that stagnant pool is never stirred up. Here is the frustrating part. When you finally stand up and attempt to correct the issue with squats, you end up engaging the front of the thigh and the hamstrings at the back. The squat is an excellent movement overall, but for the inner thigh specifically, it accomplishes very little because the adductor group barely activates during a traditional squat. Consequently, you complete your workout believing you have done the necessary labor, yet the stagnant pool remains completely untouched. The second layer involves muscle tissue, specifically 5 individual muscles you have likely never named. The adductor group, which includes the adductor longus, trabeus medialis, adductor brevis, adductor magnus, mysis, gracilis, and pectineus, extends from your pelvis down the inside of your thigh to the knee. Adductor is merely the medical terminology for any muscle that draws a limb toward the body's midline. These 5 muscles pull your leg back toward the other side. They are also responsible for stabilizing your pelvis when balancing on a single leg, leg, changing your physical direction, or reaching sideways for an item on a low shelf. Here is what happens gradually after age 60. You stop balancing on one leg. You stop crossing one foot over the other to grab a cup from the counter. You cease those small, almost imperceptible lateral movements that daily life used to require of you. You walk forward, you sit down, you stand up, and you walk forward once more. Because the adductors are no longer called upon, they effectively fall silent. They have not vanished, nor are they weak in the traditional sense of the word. They remain fully present, intact, and ready to work. But they have simply stopped receiving the necessary neurological signal. A 2020 study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology tracked adductor engagement in older adults and noted a 41% decline compared to measurements taken 2 decades earlier. The muscle mass had not disappeared, but the command to utilize it had gradually faded away. When a muscle stops contracting on a daily basis, the surrounding tissue inevitably loses its tone. The skin loses the firmness that comes from being pushed against dense underlying tissue, and the lymph in that area loses its primary pump. Thus, the first and second layers compound one another over time. Reduced muscular contraction means less fluid drainage, which leads to increased puffiness. Increased puffiness causes the muscle to feel even further from the surface, deepening the cycle year after year and decade after decade. Most women never notice this shift until they look down and realize their inner thigh has transformed into a region they no longer recognize. The third layer is the element that is most frequently overlooked. Following menopause, estrogen levels drop significantly. When estrogen declines, the body alters its strategy for storing fat. Prior to menopause, women naturally store weight in the hips and thighs as part of a standard reproductive blueprint. After menopause, the body redistributes that stored fat. Some of it migrates to the abdomen, which is a change most women are fully aware of. A lesser-known fact is that a portion remains in the thigh region, though in a slightly different form with a looser collagen framework surrounding it. A 2008 paper in the International Journal of Obesity tracked women through the menopausal transition and detailed this structural redistribution. Subcutaneous thigh fat after menopause is less dense, retains more fluid, and is highly sensitive to the tone of the underlying muscle compared to earlier years. In plain terms, the exact same amount of fat appears softer, holds more fluid, and shifts positions more readily than it did at age 50. Then consider the impact of posture on this area. As the hips gradually rotate inward over a lifetime of sitting, the thighs roll inward as well. This causes the inner thigh tissue to shift toward the front of the leg, where it bulges noticeably. Meanwhile, the back of the inner thigh becomes hollowed out, meaning the same body fat now occupies a slightly different position on your frame and looks like much more. You are dealing with three distinct layers: lymphatic stagnation, muscle silence, and hormonal redistribution combined with postural rotation. The fat you observe in the mirror is merely the messenger, while the three underlying layers represent the actual message. Now, I want to dispel one common myth before we proceed any further. The misconception is that you can selectively burn fat from the inner thigh by performing targeted inner thigh exercises. A 2013 study from the University of Connecticut examined this concept directly by having participants train only a single leg for 12 weeks. Both legs lost an identical amount of fat, proving you cannot select a specific region and burn its fat by working it. However, the reality that this myth obscures is that while you cannot spot reduce fat, you can absolutely spot restore three critical elements that dictate how a region looks. You can restore the drainage, the muscle tone, and the physical alignment. This is completely different from burning fat, and it is actually far better. It alters how the existing fat is held, drained, and framed, which is what genuinely changes the appearance of the inner thigh in the mirror before any fat is lost at all. Most of the transformation you observe in the initial 6 weeks is not fat loss, but rather fluid reduction and improved muscle tone. This is precisely why the results manifest much faster than people anticipate when they finally target the correct issues. Let us transition to some quick self-tests. Before introducing the 10-minute routine, I would like you to perform 3 brief tests right where you are currently sitting. They require less than 2 minutes in total and will reveal which of the 3 layers is most prominent in your body. Different individuals have unique combinations of these factors, and understanding yours helps manage your expectations. Test 1 is the pinch and lift technique. Gather the soft tissue of your inner thigh roughly a hand's width above the knee and pinch it gently between your fingers. Lift it slightly away from the underlying muscle to evaluate the sensation. Does it feel like a solitary soft layer that lifts away effortlessly, or does it feel as though there are 2 distinct layers present? If it lifts easily and feels completely uniform, your primary issue is lymphatic fluid accumulation in the surface tissue. If it feels uneven, with a firmer band residing beneath the soft surface, your main challenge is muscle silence. In that case, the adductor has atrophied slightly, leaving the loose surface tissue sitting on top. Most women over 60 experience a combination of both, but one layer will feel noticeably more dominant. Test 2 is the pressure test.
Press your thumb firmly into the inner thigh tissue and maintain that pressure for 5 seconds. Release it and observe the skin closely. If a small indentation remains for more than 3 seconds before smoothing out, your lymphatic system is circulating slowly, and this is a mild form of pitting, distinct from the severe cases seen in ankles, but it confirms the presence of that stagnant pool. If the skin rebounds instantly, your fluid layer is functioning well, and your primary issue resides in the muscle layer. Test 3 is the squeeze test. Sit up straight with your feet resting flat on the floor. Place your fist between your knees and squeeze them inward against your hand. Hold this contraction for 10 seconds while paying close attention to where you feel the effort. Is it located in the inner thigh halfway up from the knee, or is it higher near the groin, or perhaps almost non-existent? If you feel virtually nothing, your adductors have become inactive. That is the muscle silence layer communicating directly that it has been overlooked for years. If you feel a distinct contraction along the inner thigh, your muscle layer is responsive, and your primary challenges are drainage and fat redistribution. These 3 tests take less than 2 minutes and provide a personal map of your inner thigh, which is data your last medical appointment likely omitted. Now, let us discuss nutrition, because the movement routine alone cannot fully resolve this. There are 3 specific dietary traps that affect this particular region rather than overall body weight. The first trap is hidden sodium rather than visible salt. The salt you shake onto your food is rarely the culprit. Instead, the sodium concealed within processed crackers, commercial soups, deli meats, bottled sauces, condiments, and packaged bread causes the issue. Sodium draws water directly into the interstitial tissue, and your inner thigh pool is one of the first places that fluid manifests. A 2016 analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adults over 60 consume an average of roughly 2,900 milligrams of sodium daily, with the vast majority coming from hidden sources rather than the table salt shaker. The second trap involves refined carbohydrates consumed without accompanying protein. Examples include eating white bread, a muffin, crackers, or a cookie with afternoon tea on their own. When these foods enter the bloodstream without protein to slow digestion, insulin levels spike dramatically. One of insulin's less obvious roles is signaling the body to retain fluid and store fat in subcutaneous areas, including the inner thigh. The third trap is insufficient protein at breakfast. Past the age of 60, the body requires more protein to preserve muscle tissue than it did at age 40. If your morning meal consists merely of toast and coffee, the muscles you want to activate, including the adductors, lack the raw materials needed to rebuild after movement. Most women over 60 consume approximately half the protein required for muscle preservation. Consequently, the muscle fails to develop because it is undernourished, even if overall body weight is perfectly fine. Now, let us focus on protective foods, starting with the first category of high water and high potassium options. These include cucumbers, celery, kiwi, white beans, bananas, and potatoes eaten with the skin on. Potassium effectively counterbalances sodium and assists the kidneys in releasing the excess water your inner thighs have been holding. Most women over 60 receive less than half the potassium their kidneys require to function optimally. The second category consists of magnesium-rich foods like pumpkin seeds, dark leafy greens, almonds, and black beans. Magnesium enhances the quality of muscular contractions, meaning that when you perform the 10-minute routine, the adductors fire more efficiently and recover quicker. The third category is simple hydration. Most women over 60 are mildly dehydrated, and dehydration paradoxically triggers the body to retain fluid in stagnant areas like the inner thigh. Drinking adequate water actually helps drain the inner thigh rather than flooding it. Aim for approximately 6 to 8 glasses throughout the day, distributed evenly rather than consumed all at once.
Now, here is the routine, consisting of 10 minutes, 5 movements, and 2 minutes each, performed in a precise sequence because the order matters more than the exercises themselves. Minutes 1 and 2 feature the legs up the wall opener. Lie on your back near a wall and extend both feet upward so your legs form an L shape with your torso. Slowly open your legs into a wide V position along the wall, then bring them back together. Repeat this slow opening and closing motion for about 20 repetitions over the course of 2 minutes. This movement serves as the lymphatic primer where gravity facilitates the drainage process. The deliberate open and close action pumps the inner thigh tissue toward the pelvis, allowing the lymph nodes to effectively process the fluid they receive. This targets layer 1, and you must always begin here. Neglecting this initial step is the most frequent reason inner thigh routines fail for women over 60. Minutes 3 and 4 involve the clamshell exercise. Lie on your side with your knees bent in front of you, stacked neatly on top of each other with your ankles touching. While keeping your ankles pinned together, raise the top knee away from the bottom knee, then lower it back down. The movement opens and shuts just like a clamshell. Perform 12 repetitions on one side, then flip over to complete 12 repetitions on the other side. This wakes up the deep hip stabilizers and the upper adductors working in tandem, providing the vital foundation the inner thigh requires before handling heavier loads. Execute this exercise with complete focus rather than rushing through it. Moving slowly is much more challenging than moving quickly, and that deliberate pace is what produces the desired result. Minutes 5 and 6 utilize the supine squeeze. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet resting flat on the floor. Place a small pillow or a rolled-up towel between your knees. Squeeze your knees together into the pillow for 3 seconds, then release the tension for 1 second. Repeat this pattern to activate the adductor recall mechanism. You are essentially reminding the muscle of its proper function. Avoid squeezing with maximum force, focusing instead on mindfulness and structural awareness. The goal here is nervous system signal restoration rather than intense strength training, so aim for 20 repetitions across the 2 minutes. Minutes 7 and 8 consist of the standing inner thigh slide. Stand near a wall or a countertop to maintain your balance. Place a small towel or a sock beneath one foot on a smooth flooring surface. Slide that foot outward to the side slowly, then pull it back toward your standing leg using your inner thigh muscles rather than your hip flexors or foot. Perform 6 repetitions on one side, followed by 6 repetitions on the opposite side. This represents the only loaded movement within the entire routine. It trains the adductors to perform their authentic daily responsibility of stabilizing your body while standing, which is the exact function they have stopped executing. Minutes 9 and 10 conclude with the wall drain. Lie on your back once more with your legs extended straight up against the wall. Rest your hands by your sides and breathe deeply, inhaling for 2 seconds and exhaling for 4 seconds for 2 full minutes. This serves as your cool-down period where gravity pulls everything you just activated back toward the central drainage network. If you omit this step, the routine still functions, but adding it roughly doubles your visible results over the initial 3 weeks. That encompasses the entire routine, 10 minutes and 5 movements. The sequence transitions logically from layer 1 to layer 2, then to layer 3, and finally back to layer 1. It follows a pattern of drainage, activation, recall, loading, and drainage once more. This bookended framework, which opens and closes with a drainage phase, is precisely what most mainstream thigh routines neglect. It represents the structural difference that allows this method to genuinely transform the area rather than just fatiguing your legs. I want to be entirely transparent about what changes occur and when they happen, because understanding the timeline is more important than most people realize. During week 1, you will feel the inner thigh muscles engage, potentially for the first time in several years. You might experience a minor cramp during the squeezing movement, particularly on the first or second day. That sensation simply indicates the muscle is waking up rather than sustaining any damage. From week 2 through week 3, the visible puffiness in the inner thigh region will begin to diminish. This initial change is not fat loss, but rather the successful drainage of fluid as layer 1 responds. The overall contour of the region will begin to shift, and the skin will feel noticeably less spongy when pinched. From week 4 through week 8, the adductor muscle begins to develop underneath the surface. The skin now rests more firmly against solid underlying tissue that has been restored. This is the phase where the visible improvements begin to look permanent rather than temporary. Between week 8 and week 12, the fat in the area starts to redistribute as the underlying muscle consumes more daily energy. This is the slowest transformation, but it is also the most enduring one. Let us highlight a critical observation regarding week 2. That first visible milestone of fluid reduction is the exact turning point that determines whether most women abandon the routine or persist. If you observe a reduction in fluid by the conclusion of the second week, the muscular changes in week 4 are highly predictable. If you see no change in fluid retention by week 2, the most probable reason is that you are performing the squeezing movement with too much force while neglecting the initial wall stretch. The lymphatic component serves as your foundation, so you must honor it. Spending 2 minutes against the wall is a mandatory requirement. Allow me to reiterate a vital reminder from earlier because personal safety provides the ultimate framework for everything we discuss. If at any point during the next 3 weeks one leg becomes significantly more swollen than the other, or if one inner thigh becomes painful, hot, or tender to the touch, halt the routine and consult a medical professional within the week. That specific presentation is not what this video is designed to address, and it warrants a legitimate medical evaluation. Always remember that if you take medications for blood pressure, blood thinning, or hormone-related issues, you should perform this routine alongside your standard care rather than as a substitute. Please consult with a healthcare provider who knows your history before making any modifications to your lifestyle. Here are 5 small steps to take before you go to sleep tonight. These are separate from the main routine and serve to prime your system tonight so that tomorrow's initial session occurs under optimal conditions. First, stand up from your current seat and walk for 2 minutes. This can be down a hallway or simply back and forth across a single room. Doing so disrupts the stagnant fluid pool before you go to bed.
Second, consume 1 large glass of pure water within the next 10 minutes. Third, lie on your back with your legs extended up against the wall for 2 minutes before brushing your teeth this evening. 2 minutes represents the entire requirement for this step. This action alone will initiate the drainage process tonight, before you even attempt the full routine tomorrow. Fourth, incorporate 1 clean source of protein into your breakfast tomorrow morning. You could choose an egg, a spoonful of Greek yogurt, or a handful of almonds to secure roughly 12 to 15 grams of protein. This minor adjustment provides immediate nourishment to the muscles you are about to awaken. Fifth, complete the full 10-minute routine for the first time tomorrow at any convenient point during the day. Repeat it the following day and the day after that. Commit to 3 consecutive days before evaluating whether the method is effective for you. 5 brief tasks tonight and 1 10-minute routine starting tomorrow constitute the entire requirement. Before you depart, please share 3 quick details with me in the comments section below. What decade of life are you currently navigating, whether it is your 60s, 70s, or 80s? Where are you tuning in from, as a state or country is perfectly sufficient. Finally, which of the 3 self-tests registered most strongly in your own body tonight, whether it was the pinch, the press, or the squeeze? Those 3 pieces of information allow me to craft the next video specifically for the actual community members watching, rather than an imaginary average viewer. Furthermore, if you know a sister, a friend, a neighbor, or anyone in your family who has been quietly battling this issue for years without success, please forward this video to her. Do not hesitate or feel self-conscious. Share it this very evening. That individual act of sharing is what delivers this explanation to the next person who might be feeling discouraged in front of her bathroom mirror. Loss of firmness in your inner thighs past age 60 is not a penalty for growing older. It is certainly not an indication that your body is failing you in any way. Instead, it is a quiet, entirely correctable signal from a physical region that has simply been required to do less over the decades while the rest of your life moved forward. Dedicate 10 minutes each day to drainage first, activation second, recall third, loading fourth, and drainage once more at the conclusion. Maintain this specific sequence long enough to allow every structural layer to respond appropriately. The reflection you see in the mirror 12 weeks from now will look completely different from the one you see tonight.